everybody. It's Friday, November 13th, 2020, and we're here with this week's edition of Nonprofit Executive Spotlight. I'm your host, Cecilia Sepp, CAE. I'm the principal and founder of Rogue Tulips Nonprofit Consulting, and we're very pleased to provide this service to our colleagues in the community who are currently in transition. We're really pleased to welcome today's guest, Jane Love, and she's going to talk with us today about the power of publishing. Welcome, Jane.
Hi, Cecilia. Thanks for having me.
Oh, glad you could join us. So I'd like to dive right into a question I think many of us have. I know I always have had this question. What is the difference between a scholarly journal and a magazine?
Well, Cecilia, a magazine is aimed at the general public. You see them in the supermarkets. They contain news, personal stories, ads, pictures, things like that. A journal is a scholarly periodical. It's peer-reviewed, and its target audience are specialists, researchers, people that are in that field.
Oh, so it's a very niche market.
Very niche, yes.
Oh, that's interesting. And so have you spent most of your career working on scholarly journals?
Yes, most of it in the last, yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So since you have so much experience working on scholarly journals, what do you think is the most important thing about managing that process?
Well, the most important thing, of course, is the research. Your article needs to be different, new. It needs to contribute something to the subject field. And it needs to be peer reviewed. It needs to be gone over by other people in your field. Without that, the journal's not going to publish it.
So there's a lot of more research and analytical activities that happen with this journal article, it sounds like.
Yes. The article is the culmination of the professor or the scientist's research. He or she may have spent years on this particular subject, or it may have been something that they came up with, an observation that they came up that they wanted to share with their colleagues.
So it sounds like you probably spend some time in that process looking at other people's research that's similar to a submitted article.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about delivery of this information, of journals and magazines and all other kinds of information today. So what do you think is better about digital publishing over print publishing?
Well, the great thing about digital is that the information is available pretty much right away. A lot of journals will publish your paper before it's even been peer reviewed. It's called in press. So
so that means it's still being reviewed.
It's still being reviewed. It's been accepted, but it's basically whatever you submitted. It's put out there in the rough form, and then it gets peer reviewed, it gets polished, and then it's published again, a second time.
That's really interesting. I don't think many of us realize that it gets reviewed so often. Fascinating. So you've also talked about the fact that digital publishing allows you to get the information out there almost instantaneously, but is there still a long arc in scholarly peer-reviewed journals before it even hits the digital stage?
Well, it's not as long as it used to be. Most journals try to get through the peer review process within 30, 40 days because you need a quick turnaround time because people are doing this research. Other people need to read it to help their research. So the quicker you can get it online, the better.
Oh, interesting. Okay, hadn't thought about it that way. So you want to get it out there really fast so other people can look at it and share their comments. That's really interesting. For those of us who maybe have done some editing and communication and writing work, but not on the scholarly end, that is just fascinating. So it sounds like there's a lot that goes into scholarly journals, a lot more than magazines. So what are some of the skills that you bring to the table that help you be successful in that area?
Well, I have an extensive background both in the scholarly publication as well as business publications. I worked online journals, print journals. I've actually worked at pretty much every stage of the publications process. Started out proofreading, copy editing, I edit content, I do fact checking, I do research. Um, I believe I have excellent oral and written communication skills. I'm very attentive to detail. Um, I usually find typos in everything I read. I don't know about you.
Well, my husband and I have a running joke when we're out taking walks, and typos just jump out at me. And I say,
Yes.
"Oh no, typo!" And he's like, "Leave him a note." So I tend to say that like typos make my eyes bleed, but because I
Well,
cannot see them.
typos used to bother me when I've seen them on websites online, but they don't anymore because I know those people are trying to get their information out quickly. That's why you need copy editors to catch those typos.
Yeah, I think that's probably the worst thing the newspaper industry did was lay off all the copy editors.
Yeah.
Although one of my favorite games used to be find the typos in the New York Times,
No, definitely.
because they've always, yeah, my first press quote when I first started my career was in the New York Times, and they spelled my last name wrong. So
Yeah, that's a tough one.
yeah, it's just, yeah. Well, and then the funny thing is when other reporters were calling to try to do follow up for their own stories, the receptionist kept telling them there was nobody there by that name.
Oh no.
So proofreading is important. And when it jumps out at me, because I do a lot of editing for people, what they just jump out at me, I can't not see them. Like even if I'm
Yeah.
just relaxing, taking a walk, I can't not see them. They're just there. So it's sort of like the Queen's Gambit. I'm like the Queen's Gambit of proofreading. So anyway, but this is about you, not about me. So it sounds like you have a lot of great skills when it comes to the publication process and working with the materials. So what are some of the things that you do to smooth the way for the authors? And what I mean by that is like, how do you manage that author relationship? Do you make sure they have a schedule? Do you remind them about deadlines? Do you make sure they feel comfortable with the process? So how do you manage those author relationships?
Well, the authors are given all the information that they need up front. When I get their paper, I go through it. I put it in the correct order. I run all the programs on it. And I usually will send several questions to the author if I know it's something that's going to really affect the proof. So if they have something spelled one way and I think it's not correct, or what, a unit of measure is not correct, or it looks a little suspicious, or the references aren't coming through the I can't find them online, then I will contact the author. And the great thing is that the authors are really grateful for all the work that you do, especially the international authors. They'll say, "Oh, thank you so much for catching this. I really appreciate it," because this is their baby. This is their livelihood. It's their research, and they want it to be, as good as it can be. They want to reach other scientists in their field.
That must be a great feeling too, to know that you're helping somebody so much and that they appreciate it.
Yeah.
I bet you've gotten a lot of thank you notes.
Yes. Nobody's ever complained.
Well, that's always a good sign. So you've worked with a lot of different authors over the years on a lot of different topics. What was your favorite article that you've ever worked on?
Well, there's one that really stands out. A professor from the Netherlands, should I mention his name?
Why not? I'm sure he'll get a kick out of it.
Dr. Barry Fitzgerald from Delft University would send a paper to me about once a year about the physiology of superheroes. So he would take, for instance, Hawkeye from the Avengers and talk about the physiology behind his X-ray vision. The great thing about his papers was I would get references to comic books and to movies. So I had to go through the Chicago manual style, figure out how on earth do I reference this. But I love reading his papers. I am sure his classes at the university were wonderful. I think he also has a YouTube channel.
Oh, fun. We should look that up. That would be a great YouTube channel. So now there's always an argument between the Marvel universe and the DC universe, and there's some people out there who say you can't like both. I disagree with that, but that's another discussion. So did this professor's articles only focus on Marvel versus DC, or did he write about all superheroes?
I think it was
Because like Spider-Man's Marvel, like was it all Avengers? Or?
I think he was just doing Avengers. I mean, maybe he's doing different ones now. I don't know.
But when you worked with him, it was Marvel all the time.
It was the Avengers, yeah.
All Marvel all the time. So it'd be interesting to read his paper on Shazam. So we'll have to look that one up.
Yeah.
The physiology of Shazam. Great movie, guys, if you haven't seen it. So, well, Jane, as we come close to the end of our episode, what you do is very demanding and it takes a lot of time and energy. So how do you like to recharge in between articles? Do you like to bike ride or take walks or read books that are not about superheroes?
Oh, in my downtime, I read. I'm a reader. But I didn't, copyediting was not stressful for me because you have to love taking something in its rough form and making it pretty. I actually was never happier than when I had this big messy table with 15 columns and 3 pages long, and I had to format it. That to me, it's like doing puzzles. It was relaxing.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that's wonderful because they say if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
So that's great. So when you think about publishing, and you can talk about journals or magazines or just the whole topic of publishing, what is the one thing that you think about that you think nonprofits and other organizations who publish should be thinking about? Should they be thinking about a deeper digital future? Should they be thinking about more video and how that's going to compete? Things like that. Like, what are the things that you muse about?
I would say both of those things. Definitely video. People like to click on and watch videos. I think probably I would say probably all of the scholarly journals are online now. The company I worked for, they were moving away from the print issues. And with the virus, when the virus hit, a lot of the institutions, the universities, they weren't there to accept the print issues. So digital, I mean, you could still get all your research done. You don't need to flipping through a journal.
Oh, interesting. That's an interesting point, again, about how digital has done so much to help us through this time of the pandemic. And here's just one final question for you. I like to listen to audiobooks. I don't know if you enjoy that as well, but I like it because they're portable and it's like having the radio on in the background. Do you think there is a role for audiobooks in the world of scholarly publishing? Like, could you imagine a world where people are reading the articles and other people can listen to them?
I don't know if that would really play well with scientific research because you have a lot of, you would need someone who really knew what they were reading to read it. It would take a long time. Yeah. I think the audiobooks, that's more for, I don't know, relaxing. It's more of a relaxing thing. Whereas research, you can read faster than you can listen. So I don't know.
I think that's a good point. I'm just curious because I've heard people suggest that certain textbooks be audio versions, simply because different people, like some people are audio learners, some are visual learners. And so I just thought that was an interesting question as we were talking. So want to thank you again for joining us today and sharing all of your insights and giving us a kind of a view of the back end of scholarly journals. It's been a great conversation. What's the best way people can get in touch with you if they'd like to add you to their team?
My LinkedIn page.
And you can find Jane at Jane Love, Love.
I think it might be listed as Jane D. Love.
Jane D. Love. Well, we will find out.
Right.
People start looking for you, they will find you. So Jane, thanks again. And of course, as she pointed out, the D. Love, that shows you her attention to detail. So please look Jane up, have a conversation with her, and consider adding her to your team. So thanks again, Jane. And thank you all for watching Nonprofit Executive Spotlight. We'll be back next week unless everybody has a job by then.
Yay.
See you then.
Bye, Cecilia.
Bye, Jane.